So, yes. This is Kal Kat, the Kal Katster, and earlier today, around 2 hours ago, I got done watching, binge watching all 6 episodes of Transformers Siege, War for Cybertron Siege, Toyline show thingy, and here is my Megatron from the show. So, anyway. Yes. And the cliff jumper from Earthrise. Anyway, so yeah, a bunch of fun. Yeah, but that's Max. I was not in it, of course. Yeah. So yeah, there was a hiatus of episodes for our all Transformers MUSH thing. I think we did the last one about 2 months ago. Was it 2 months ago? I can check that. Let's see. I'm gonna check that first. Let's see. But yeah, it has been a while. Okay, Transitions of Wrath was May 19th, 2 months ago. A little over 2 months ago. So we are getting back into that. The next one up in the pike is Sibling Rivalry. It's followed by the Jazzy episode, which was retitled. It's not the Jazzy episode. We don't even know who the Jazzy was. So it's not a Jazzy we know. It's somebody from the 90s who wrote the story. Jazz and Jazzy. It's different Jazzy. There is a Jazzy that we know of, but it's not her. It's somebody from way, way, way back. Anyway, and we don't know her in this case. But the story that comes later. That was the next one, because we want to do something less dark than the one we did a couple of months ago in May. So yeah, so there was a hiatus. It wasn't because the Netflix show was going to be on at the end of July. We wanted to see what the Netflix show was about. It doesn't matter what they're doing over there at Netflix, because this isn't the same thing. So it wasn't that. So yeah. So what about? Let's get on with it. Okay, six episodes, about 21 minutes each, totaling, well, it would be roughly 2 hours, something like that. Yeah, altogether, it's a miniseries pilot. It's not really a pilot because it's not a show. It's like 3 miniseries. It's Siege, Earthrise, and there's a third one. Understand? Is that one? Something like that. And Earthrise is the next one. And yeah. So yeah, yeah. Okay, let's go. The premise of the story is sort of a hard reboot of Transformers on Cybertron in the games, the War of Cybertron, followed Cybertron and all that. A hard reboot, and anyway, so yeah, the hard reboot is there's the kitty cat. Again, yeah, it is very much like all Transformers MUSH. They don't know what it is, so it's more like IDW Comics. They didn't list hardly any credits at the end of each episode. DeSantos is one of them. I think that's one of the IDW. As for the rest of the voice cast, they were very similar. That was one drawback to it, is that even though the characters were distinct designs that were apparently rotoscoped over toys to make the designs, which is a different way to do it. It's sort of like motion capture, but with toys. So in a sense, it was like a high-end version of. It was Rooster Feathers, the company that did this. Different company, associated years ago with the MUSH. Yeah, 2005 MUSH, the later one. Yeah, vaguely, I think. Some of the characters too. I don't think anybody became famous as a result of being writers on the MUSH. I don't think so. But in this case, some of them were IDW, so that was different. Beast Wars. So the characters tend to sound similar, but they don't look alike, and that's nice, because Michael Bay movies you could not tell what was going on with Megatron, and some of the other ones didn't look right. But in this one, they fairly G1. But because I did scan in toys, it kind of has the same effect that the Corrosion story did, in that they kind of look stilted and plasticky. But in my version, they are literally plastic, so I couldn't make that different. Megatron has kissable lips. Toy. Prime has a cowl over his face. And Prime and Megatron, the voice actors in this, sound very much alike. This is part of the problem with the guy trying to be dark and evil. I must sound like Megatron. Prime is all, I must sound like Optimus Prime. It's very, very similar. It's like, no, Megatron's voice should be slightly pitched up a little bit. Frank Welker did the voice like, I am Megatron, leader of the Decepticons. Gleefully evil. Whereas Optimus Prime would have the lower sort of cowboy marine voice, because it was based on Peter Cullen's late brother. And he would go, I am Optimus Prime, leader of the Autobots, bearer of the Matrix. I am Optimus Prime, leader of the Autobots, bearer of the Matrix. And he would have the low voice. Freedom is the right of all sentient beings. Clang! The guy playing Starscream was pretty on point, though. It could have been Fred Seismus. Could have been the fruity guy from our series. It wasn't, I don't think. No, yeah, so that would be cool. But no, it wasn't. Omega Supreme's voice was so auto-tuned that you couldn't tell what the heck he was saying. But other than that, story centers around the all the episodes take place before the launch of the Ark, building the Autobot Ark ship to launch it. There's Ultra Magnus surrenders himself to Decepticons. Spoilers. There's going to be spoilers to explain the plot. He is captured and killed. There's going to be spoilers in the review, because in order to make it work, there has to be spoilers in the review. And then Shockwave uses a computer virus to zap the other Autobots while they're trying to get the ship going. There's your plot. Also, we have a plot where we've got Jetfire, who is the Seeker commander, being supplanted by Starscream after betraying the Decepticons, which you can see coming a mile away, because you would know from hindsight. But also they set it up, so it's and it's the same Jetfire toy and asset as the one we had in our movie, in Corrosion of War Without End. It's the same Jetfire, except they're just standing off to the side. It's not literally the same toy, but it's a toy that was done the same way. Yeah. So why ours didn't move much. Don't damage the toy. It's going to be in the Netflix. Okay, we won't. No, that wasn't the case. But you can assume that that's what it was. Oh, no, they would have just scanned it in. But, no, ours was not associated in any way with it. It is very fanficky, though. There's Prime and Lita thing going on. No actually making out, though. No clang, clang, clong. None of that. Dark, dreary sets and things that they were scoped in, very similar to the tone, at least, of the Mush from the 90s. They mentioned several things from the comic books, too, including the newer Cannabis, the older Iacon. They mentioned Praxis. Praxis was funny, too, because it was also a Cybertron thing, and then it was in Star Trek as a moon of a Klingon moon, so later on, the 90s. But it was a Transformer thing again in the later stuff. They mentioned Velocitron at one point. They mentioned gladiatorial Transformers being used in the game. A lot of nods back to the several different versions of G1 as they were going, the first 3 seasons. They kind of just made stuff up, because there are like 3 different origin stories for Autobots and Decepticons in there. The Constructicons were not in this, but in the show they were at first built in a cave and then later on seen building another guy, or the distant past building Megatron. Yeah, yeah, that was in the G1 show. Also, earlier on the Combaticons and they introduced the Aerobots and the Stunticons, only to have they'd have to go get their sparks and put them in, only to have a later episode say Starscream could just go and get sparks on the planet and put them inside Transformers to make the Combaticons. If you could have done that anyway, why did they have to go to the Vector Sigma thing? Yeah, so G1's all over the place. There have been several versions of G1. They put a space bridge in this one too to establish how the ship can go into space, which is very clever. That is a G1 though. That's not just corrosion. It's not just Space Bridge the series, but there was a lot of similarities. It's interesting. This like they were on exactly the same wavelength. This is like Space Bridge the reboot, basically the show. It works on that level. If you just take it as okay, it's our reboot. It's its own thing. It is significantly better than the Minor Wars mini movie thing, because that was kind of a mess. Not for the reasons that people were saying. There were people that were butthurt because women characters were in it, which is ridiculous. That's why they didn't like it. Whereas, no, the story wasn't that good. It has nothing to do with what gender the characters are. The story was. In this case, I think they did a good job with the story. They have plenty of male and female characters, but they really wouldn't have gender. I played with that in my version of my show, and I had them all be in Corrosion of War, which is what this is most similar to, and that was Rob Powers that wrote Corrosion of War originally. So, well, he wrote Corrosion of War without in the miniseries story that was adapted by Kal Kat as a 7-part, 1 hour each miniseries. Massive effort. The beginning of the pandemic. And so that's what we did. It was followed by this one, Transitions of Wrath, by Blobby Colors. Yeah. And that was and that one had gender politics as well, and played with yeah, that one did too. But that was a male and female Transformer that had a relationship. And that was different from the other one. The other one was just kind of almost for laughs. So this one they have that going on too. And although I've been rambling about my story comparing it to this one, it really is comparable. It's the Netflix show is done in the same way, so it's related. Why wouldn't it be? It's related. It isn't supposed to be. It isn't like I didn't give them the idea, but stories like the Rob Powers one got translated into the show. He did write the original. He wrote the Corrosion of War without any title in the story, but Corrosion of War was actually a British Transformers spin-off series of comics, and it was also referenced in Generation 2. So he was actually borrowing that title from 1992 to 95. So technically, he was already borrowing it from somewhere else. He didn't come up with the title. He came up with the idea of these characters doing what they're doing. And I made them Dakarta in my version, because I didn't want him to use his characters. But yeah, I think it worked. And Draconus Prime works. Yeah. There have been some others that have kind of gone there. Same way. In fact, Ultra Magnus in this story is a lot like Draconus Prime. Yeah, a lot like him. Draconus Prime. Sounds a little like him too. But yeah, it wasn't supposed to be Ultra Magnus. It was supposed to be Draconus Prime. My version. But yeah, so I liked it because it compared it to the thing that I did, but technically I shouldn't compare it to the because they're not related. But I did. So yeah, it was fine. It was not for. It's really for, I guess, fans of the show more than it is for kids. That's not a bad thing necessarily. They just won't get it. You can still go see Robots in Disguise, the remake from 2014, 2015. You can also see Transformers Prime on there as well on Netflix. You cannot see Corrosion of War Without End on Netflix. If you want to see Corrosion of War Without End, you have to go to YouTube and find Weird Kitty 07. And you have to find, they want to find that other episode, which was a full feature film. The follow-up was called, Transitions of Wrath, which is a feature film on there. It's about as long as their miniseries. Yeah. Well, a little shorter. Yeah, it's 85 minutes. It would have been that long if it was 4 episodes. But yeah, it wasn't. It was 6, so a little bit longer than that. So, yeah, it's I noticed a typo or fan film with a lowercase f. It's funny. I'm not going to fix it. Fan film thing. Yeah, I usually like these fan film, fanficky things they put out. Different people have done them. Yeah, and I'll review them too, and when I get around to seeing some of them. They also, I thought it was kind of funny, they reference, the character they have as Sideways in my story is a Generations Twincast Soundwave, and they have a cameo by Twincast Soundwave in there. Not only that, his symbol looks a little bit like MGO the Freaking Geek symbol on his chest. So MGO's got something to do with this thing too. So that's cool. Yeah. Yeah, and it's basically Twincast. It's Sound Blaster. They call him Sound Blaster, but he's Twincast. Yeah, so he's in it. And Bumblebee is sort of a scavenger. He's sort of a scavenger at first, and then he gets the power of Alpha Trion's memories, but then the virus thing messes it up. Yeah, so I'm giving away plot points of the series because I'm reviewing it. But it's all disjointed, so you probably want to see it all together. The plot points are not in order, so you can watch it. It's on Netflix right now. I had nothing to do with it. However, it appears that I did, without knowing it. And it'll be Earthrise Siege and all that. No, thank you. I'll do some of it. It's not like we haven't inspired stuff before on there. Some stuff in all the way back to Beast Wars. Totally did. Including that weird contest to design Transmetals, Transmetal Dinobot. Yeah, and the basic premise of Beast Machines. Yeah. That wasn't me. That was Jim Ticcon. He's the one that wanted the Decepticon should be in charge. It should win. Actually, this story probably would like because the Decepticons are kind of winning in it, so he'd like this one. But then they because you have to have the underdogs be underdogs, otherwise they would be indestructible. But yeah, there's just the right amount of that, so it works. Sure. And it's not because I have a Megatron from the Netflix show. That was from earlier. So. They didn't give me anything. A product. I'm gonna hawk this product here. No, I saw that at War of Cybertron. I saw that at Walmart at the beginning of the pandemic and bought it because it looked cool. Yeah, or at the middle of the pandemic. I think I bought that around, actually, I think it was around June that I bought that. And then I have this Earthrise, a little guy here. Oh, that was recent. Little cliff jumper. Oh, he's in it for like a few seconds. Whole figurine just to be in it for a few seconds and say, we're going over here, and then belching. Yes, more Alt Transformers MUSH. We gotta do this film the next episode. The Jazzy episode, which was changed. I believe she's now Rakshi episode, so it's combined with Rakshi, Nightbird, Night Racer somehow. Find out how that works. But I decided that in this version that it should be Roxy and Scout. And they should be on an adventure because then it's more new and different and interesting. So they're on an adventure on Cybertron. So we'll see what happens with them. Probably be similar. It's not inspired by DeSantos' series. And the other two. Anyway, so transform and roll out. That's my scattered all over the place review of Netflix's War for Cybertron Trilogy. That is a long, long title. Transformers War for Cybertron Trilogy Siege is the first 6 episodes. Why did they go for such a long title? I mean, I've done that before with some of my Cillian books, but it's Transformers. Just call it Transformers Siege. You don't need to explain it. That it's War for Cybertron. It clearly is. Transformers Siege. Did they think they wouldn't know what that means? Transformers Earthrise. Ooh. Transformers Earthrise. Although Earthrise kind of sounds like an herbal tea supplement. Transformers Earthrise. It's tasty. Yeah. Transformers Earthrise. No. Actually, product placement. I think this is Starbucks. Oddly enough, it doesn't. Oh, there's the logo. See, Starbucks. Only because the church coffee shop's not open. Because it's still a pandemic. Now. Anyway, so continuing on with our trans adventures, I was doing a nod to the Colavito blogs, the Cillian story, which is completely rewritten to the point that it isn't really anymore a nod to the Colavito blogs, but to Hutton Pulitzer's thing and all that, his rant, that's something else. It was a silly track thing. But I rewrote it as a silly track story. It really has nothing to do with it anymore, except that some of the dialogue is on similar points. Lots of stuff about giants and Nephilim and aliens. Anyway, this is this, and that is that. So, Siege. Transformers Siege. A little long. Anyway,